All right, welcome to Leverage. Now that I have an actual name, I can welcome you all to it. Discussion about real estate and just pulling back the curtains on all different topics related. Today, I have Shannon Baxter, who is the president of Collab. I don't want to do your bio for you because I won't do it justice, but we have a phenomenal friend in common.
Yes.
And I was lucky enough to be able to be introduced to you and follow along all of the amazing stuff and work that you're doing right now. But so I'm excited to have you on and talk about
Thank
what's
you.
going on in the advertising world.
Yeah, thank you. So just a bit about myself. I essentially worked head office retail marketing / creative my entire life. My first job being at Club Monaco.
Yes.
So that's where our mutual connection kind of starts.
Fellow clubber.
Yeah.
It was like, I actually think there should be like a face group. I'm dating myself to say there should be a face group. I think my children watching this are like, oh my God, Mom, you just said that. But I really almost feel like we were talking about that the other day. There should be a reunion or something.
Yeah.
There was something about it.
There was. I feel like when you're with a company, as long as, some people are with a company, you tend to make lifelong friends. And so one of those people that we're connected with tends to be somebody who's been in my life ever since. So it's been like 20, 25 years. Yeah. And then others, I think, within the Club Monaco circle, I still kind of bump into here and there. Because again, creative is creative. Toronto's, nobody leaves Toronto is what I always say, you know what I mean?
If they do, they always come back.
There's no, yeah. Like everyone who's born in Toronto tends to stay in Toronto. You know what I mean? It's where you work. It's where you raise your family. Unless you decide to just leave Canada altogether kind of thing.
Which is rare.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
And then after Club Monaco, I left and I got a job working for Spin Master, which is another Canadian brand.
Yes.
And I spent about close to 10 years there. So again, same, like lifelong friends made there, still talk to them. And then from there, had 2 children, moved to the suburbs. Who am I? And got a job working for Loblaw head office because of just it being close by to where I was living at the time. Right. And then just like wanting to stay within marketing and then also within the creative. Okay. Big brand, incredible marketing team that came out of Loblaw. I learned so much.
Mm-hmm.
I was with
them. I have friends who are there. Yeah, absolutely.
And I spent about 4 years there, and that's when I was deciding, where do I go next? Kind of like laying in bed, looking at my phone, scrolling through LinkedIn, and it's like, okay, where have I not worked yet? Where do I want Indigo? Like thinking about like all these different places, you know what I mean? And then I was like, I just don't know. Like, I think I've learned everything that I can learn or I want to learn, like in this area of my life. And it's, it's new company and new people and new brand, but kind of like same role. And I needed to push myself a bit more. And so when I was at Loblaw, I decided I've always been involved with when I'm at Loblaw, at Spin Master, and at Club Monaco. I was always involved with the creative development process within the marketing team, and a big part of that was photography, photo shoots, production. Loved it. Always wanted to be near it. I don't have the patience to be an artist, but I like to surround myself with artists.
Right, for sure.
So I think I just I spoke with my husband at the time and I was like, I'm looking to kind of try something new. And he's always been an entrepreneur. He's never worked for anybody else. Okay. He jokingly called me the anchor. Can't go anywhere, can't do anything because you work. Yeah. He's like, I would love for you to start your own thing. I fully support you. Please go. So I left Loblaw and reached out to a photographer that we were working with at the time and just said, like, you're looking for representation. I'd love to come work not for you, but partner with you, bring you business. Right. And then produce the work for you, and let's see how this goes. And he said yes, and so that was kind of like my first jump out of
and they will come.
Safety, marketing, full-time salary into my own thing.
Well, listen, for someone who had a corporate job, even in sales, I've been in sales my whole life, making that jump to, from someone who is paying your salary to saying, I have to, pay my own bills now and it's up to me.
Yeah.
It's a big jump.
It's
but
a big
once
jump.
you do it, you can never go back.
Well, and
or at
I
least
think
can
that's
say
it.
that.
I think that's it, right?
Yeah.
And so jumping and spending what I think you know the other side of the business.
Yeah.
But it's super technical. There's so many aspects of the business that coming from client side, the cushy side. I think I remember actually leaving and telling my creative director at the time that I was leaving, and he was like, "You're nuts." He's like, most people go from production side to
the cushy
to the cushy client
Yes.
side. He goes,
Yes.
"You're doing the opposite leap," And I said, "Well, I feel like I just need to learn more. I need to push myself more."
Right.
Again, being able to be around the artists on the production side, the photographers, the directors, the stylists, just surrounding myself and being around them constantly. They're like
So inspiring.
so inspiring.
So inspiring.
So for me, that was an amazing part of my everyday now is being a part of that. The hard part is obviously trying to figure out like what you do with your day all day long. Crawl before you can walk, so to speak. And so a lot of people in the industry that do what I do tend to have a roster of, 10 to 15 different artists. I told myself that first year I would stick with one and just kind of learn the business slowly, not rush into anything. And so from there, took on a few other photographers and directors. Then COVID hit. So me learning the business completely from like scratch, also on top of that was learning the business, the production side of the business during COVID. So I don't know if you guys know this, but a lot of industries were locked down and could not do business. Production was allowed to continue to.
Oh, interesting. Well, I know real estate was considered, an essential service. So production was considered an essential service.
Yes. So there was a lot of rules. There was a lot of regulations. It was daily COVID tests, weekly COVID tests. It was just so I was learning a new business, like this side of this business, but also like during the COVID time. So there was like a moment where the rule was like you could have 10 people in a room.
Right. I remember. Oh, this is coming back. Oh my God. I've really tried to not remember anything back to those days, right? And the masks and all of that. But so would you say that collabs is how would you?
It's basically two businesses.
Okay.
It's artist management. So my role is to find the artists that I represent. I have a contract with them that I will find them work, and produce that work for them once it comes through. So essentially, it's my job to use my contacts, find the work. Produce the work, oversee everything when it comes to the work. And these particular artists who have connected with me and have partnered with me trust me with that. So going back to my whole Club Monaco, Spin Master, blah, Toronto, nobody ever leaves. Right. A lot of my contacts are from people that I used to work with throughout all of those years. And again, they all move around. They jump from company to company to company. I would say that when I try to pitch myself to my artists, that I say, like my secret sauce is that I used to sit in those boardrooms. I know what they're talking about. I know what they need. I can translate that now from client side to production side, and vice versa to my clients. So there's trust there. Yes.
Business end of the artist's discussion, because an artist is an artist. Okay. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And I think it really lends into, what we were talking about and why we thought there was such a good fit was just, and I've seen this change, but this whole, in my industry, in agents, and again, this is how this whole podcast started, and the fact that, now agents have to create this content. And so everything is about content creation, right? Yeah. And so we were talking about this new trend, as you called it, the BTS, which is behind the scenes, which you're really seeing is the biggest trend right now with brands that are coming to you. Yeah. And I know for myself, even 6 months ago when I had to get on video and I thought to myself, okay, well, this has to be like a wash the hair day. And I had to make sure, and I had to have the makeup and I had to have the whole outfit on. And now that's not what people want to see. Even in my industry, the idea that they want to see the real you, they want to really understand, they don't want the filters. Yeah. So talk to me about what you're seeing when brands come to you about that.
So essentially when a brand or a client or an agency hires us as a production company and the artists that I represent, it's typically campaign based. It can be anywhere from, digital website needs to online video needs to all the way to broadcast TV commercials, print, out of home, all of that. And so we can essentially capture that entire campaign under one roof. But what's happening and the trend that I see happening with the BTS is, they spend a lot of money on those campaigns. They spend a lot of money on where that billboard gets placed and where that TV commercial goes. But, where people are consuming media is typically through their phones and social media. And so there's like a missed opportunity there, at least there has been in the past, to, shoot some additional content. So while our entire team is there shooting and you've got your stylist and you've got the right lighting and you've got, your camera team, you've got everybody there, we're now being asked to bring in kind of like a second smaller team that kind of shoots the additional behind the scenes content that's happening while you're there. Because, we can be there for a week at a time as a team. And it's, revealing, like the set builds, and it's revealing, like the wardrobe pulls. It's revealing, the talent getting hair and makeup, and just kind of like, because we do have a fun job. It is a cool job. Let's show people, like how fun it can be, and the brands that want to kind of show that. And I think it comes down to, one, you're getting a lot more content to speak to your campaign. It can be a teaser type of like leading up to the launch of something that you're showing, where you're like, what am I seeing? But you're not really revealing anything. And it's kind of cool. And what's happening to after the campaign is launched. Additional things that are happening behind the scenes, the wind machine in the hair as the model's doing something, you know what I mean? And
totally.
Just like kind of trade secrets almost revealing is what they're requesting, because they kind of want the consumer to be more connected to the brand. And I think that that's working in terms of revealing your trade secrets no longer. And even when now a part of the BTS is when we post about something, or when a brand posts about something, they don't typically say who's worked on it. Where now you tag everybody, you reveal everybody that you've been working with, you know what I mean?
So interesting.
Yes.
That's a great,
Yeah.
So a couple of points to that. So first is, digging into like the idea of these brands coming to you and saying, well, we want this other team. Do you feel, is it that, let's be all really honest, there's not as much money to go around as there used to be, right?
Yeah.
So those huge launch campaigns, I remember, even in my days in advertising, like there were millions of dollars for a new car to be launched, even, with automobile budgets being what they were. And now they're just like, we can get some influencers out there, we can do this, and there's much less money. Having said that, is it part or all about getting more bang for your buck? Or do you feel like that the consumer out there is, I want a brand that I can relate to, and they're trying to make it?
Yeah, I think it could be both. I think that, your money, your spend of your money is directed towards a new channel, which is social, and maybe isn't as expensive in order to get, you know what I mean? Like the media buy for TV and the billboards and stuff like that comes with a big price tag. And so the bigger brands are obviously still doing that.
And the measurability, of course.
So so that's the other part. Like I did sit in the boardrooms. I do know when people are presenting, their metrics, like you can present social metrics, like they're like, this is how much engagement, this is how many, like
you can also present out of home metrics. For all of you who don't know how you measure out of home, I'm really going to go to my throwbacks to advertising. And this is hilarious. I'm only sharing because I've never sold out of home, but I remember like my clients who would be in the advertising agency, and they would tell me, oh, I just had like a out of home tour. And I'm like, well, what's that? And they're like, well, we go in the car with the rep and they drive us around so we can see all the billboards. And then they basically guesstimate based on like traffic.
How many eyeballs?
And how many eyeballs.
Yeah.
Like, how do you know that someone's looking at that post? And I remember, like, Apple only bought, like, never bought TV, never bought anything, only did out of home. And, like, there were some brands that really believed in it. But, you think back to those days and now, and we were just having this conversation about, like, I'm just starting. So, I think I only had, like, 500 views, like, on some of my videos. But, you can't can't do that with anything outside of digital and social.
Yeah, it's real. It's real metrics. And so I think from a marketer's perspective, and they're, defending, why they spent this money and this is the creative and all that, it really helps them in the boardrooms, like showing like real metrics, right?
Yeah,
like this performed, this didn't perform, like A/B tests, so to speak, with the things that you're doing.
A/B tests. Yeah. The other question I had, it was interesting because you started off about like the whole scope and the website and sort of tying in social. And again, this is also fascinating to me as I speak to other realtors about building brands and friends of mine who are entrepreneurs and building out. And, we'll talk about that kind of like gig economy. But, do you still see a demand for a website? Listen, you still need like a placeholder, but just knowing that social, like I find, I get a real 50-50 from referral clients who are like, oh, I went to your website or I saw your social or I saw that video of yours.
Yeah. I know I, as a company, need a website. A big part of who looks at what we do are creatives. And so we obviously have to kind of flex a little bit with what our website looks like. And in order to capture their attention. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. And it is. It's gorgeous.
But again, it just depends, I guess, on what you're doing. Like obviously like online shopping, things like that, but maybe not. Maybe it is just, like a YouTube channel and
it's so interesting to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. You still have demand for it though.
Yes.
You still. Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So tying into all of this, and as we we went from Facebook to Instagram to TikTok to talking about what that next big thing is. Yeah. And as you said the other day, which I didn't even think about, it was like the last generation that we labeled was Gen Z. And you're like, guess what, Rachel? We're starting at the beginning of the alphabet again. Yeah. So now we're Generation Alpha.
Yes.
So talk to us about generational alpha. Like, what are they?
Well, the only reason why I know about it is because I have two Gen Alphas.
How old are they?
They're 9 and 10. And they're
I do not have
2012 and 2013.
Okay.
And so my husband and I one day were chatting about the generations and like what is a generation. It's like 10 to 15 years. And then, they change. And then we were like, oh my God, Gen Z, like the end of the alphabet. Like what does that mean?
Yeah, it's true.
And so looking into that, it's, the alphabet starting over again. So Gen Alpha is basically 2010 to mid 2020s. So it'll be 2010 to 2025. So that'll be a whole generation. And so that generation will then be the next generation after Gen Z.
Right.
And Gen Z, like the younger Gen Z, we're already seeing, they're consuming their content differently. They want things to be a lot more authentic, less filtered. We were talking about that new app that everybody keeps using called Be Real, where you're not allowed to use a filter. You get like one chance.
And by the way, the pictures, like you can't make yourself look good. So my daughter's in university. She was like, it's a great thing. We should all be on it.
Well,
it
is a university, like it's huge with the university students
so
right
interesting.
now. So
okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I thought it was just so like sweet. She wanted to be with us, but no, but no. So she said it would be a great idea. We all know where we are at that same point in the day, right? Because you all get dinged at the same time, or at least it seems that way. I don't even know what I'm talking about. Anyway, so you do it and you're like, no. Like there is
and you want to redo it.
No, it doesn't matter. I give up.
Can't.
Oh, you can't. You can't redo. You can redo it, but it just never there's no filter. And even if you get it to an angle where it's like, okay, it's still not good.
I have a friend who uses it with his son, and that's how he started using it. And he was telling me, because I had just started it, and I did a faux pas where I took like 5 or 6 different versions of my first shot because I didn't like the first. And the people on the other side who you're connected with see that, and you kind of get dinged for it.
Oh, I didn't know that they can see that you took more than
multiple
one
attempts.
I didn't even realize. Oh well, there you go. No one, don't even add me if you're on the app. Don't add me. I'm not showing my pictures. It's so bad.
Yes.
And it's usually just like, it's like me. And then it's like a picture of you. For all of you who don't know, it's a picture of you. And then it shows what you're doing on the other side. Yeah. And the idea is obviously that you're being real, that you can't.
Where are you?
It's not right now while I'm having mimosas
staged.
For brunch where, I look fantastic. It's like literally where I look like homeless because I just was like cleaning up my basement or something. And you have to do it at that. I think you have like a minute or something or 2 minutes.
Yeah. I've used it once because I wanted to test it out. But I haven't gone back. I think it's given up on me in terms of asking me to be real.
Oh, okay. Oh, no.
But I think that trend equals like other things that are going on, kind of like maybe the anti-influencer trend is starting to like happen where like
Interesting.
I just think that again, being authentic, no filters, not staging things, tends to be and I did a bit of research before I came in terms of like purchase power and stuff like that. People are purchasing less from influencers. Like it's starting to really show that it's not 100% like the way it used to be.
Because it's, I mean, I'm on all platforms only because I really want to understand what's going on. And so I wish that I could shut social off sometimes for sure. But I see some of these influencers. Like there's this one woman, she's just an average woman who lives, well, she's not average. She had a gorgeous apartment in New York, but her and her husband, and she just started this, like she started getting followers because she would do these snacks. And so I started following her, and she had these great snacks. And the next thing I know, now she's got this paid, like, video with Hellmann's, and I'm like, it's like an advertorial.
Yes,
I'm like, oh my god, there's advertorial on TikTok.
Yeah. There is, and on Instagram, sponsored, all of that sort of stuff.
But you can see it now, like, and I see it with realtors, and like, I'm not throwing shade. I'm sorry, but like, I find it, I don't find it authentic.
People
like,
can see through it.
They can. I think they can. I think that I get the partnerships, but I think that there's a demand for, I'm going to just showcase this like great furniture store because I really love it and I want my followers to know it and I want my clients to know about it. But I'm not taking money from LT.
Right.
And it wasn't LT. I didn't see an LT partnership, but I'm just saying like as an example of one that popped in my head.
Yeah, I just think that to me feels like I'm a kid that grew up in the 90s, like a teenager in the 90s. And that was like a very, anti-establishment kind of like grunge era type of thinking. And maybe that's what's happening, like where there's been just so much influence shoved down people's throats of like, look at me, look at this, and the sponsored stuff.
Social.
And I think that maybe, putting down your phone and consuming it less, and or if you are on it, you're being more choosy with like who you're following, and then this Be Real app coming through, which I think obviously it's somewhat new. I think it's new as of last year, 2022, but like there are no ads on it and that sort of stuff. Not now. I know because it's so new, so who knows, right? Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see, right? My kids, like I said, are 9 and 10, and they're at the beginning of Generation Alpha. So, like, some of them haven't even been born yet.
I'm just, all I can think is, like, I can see a scroll as I'm, like, choosing the age. I'm like, spin the wheel, 1974, spin the wheel. But, I mean, and then kind of coming full circle in this, and I'm seeing it in the real estate world, but I had a call with a client actually who lives in Paris the other day, and if she's listening, it was lovely. We had a nice coffee, and she was thinking about actually getting into real estate, and she said to me, there's actually 3 ways you can be a real estate agent in Paris. One of them being like an actual employee of a brokerage. Mm-hmm. So for everybody who doesn't know, if you're a real estate agent in Ontario, in Canada, in fact, you have to be part of a brokerage just to make sure that you're following rules and regulations for things like where does the deposit check go, trust accounts, that type of thing. So we are not independent beings. Mm-hmm. We may be self-contributors from that standpoint, like brokerages don't pay us, but we do have to, as they say it in my business, like park your license somewhere. Mm-hmm. So, but in Paris, apparently, or in France, you can be an employee, but still trade in real estate. But then you can also be someone who does not have any affiliation with a brokerage, which I found really interesting. And I have heard, so BC tends to be about 5 years behind us. So any kind of legislation, so like foreign buyers tax was 5 years behind us, and then Ontario implemented it. There's a couple of things happening right now, which I'll leave for another podcast that they're doing, but there is inkling that that's also starting to be investigated in in Vancouver in BC. And so this whole idea, and I was saying to you, like, I have a friend who's a project manager for one of the large telco companies, and she does exactly like what you do, right? But I mean, I don't know how much she gets paid, but she gets paid a salary, and I'm sure it's a fraction of what she deserves. But she's a salaried employee, and then she calls on all of her great. Some of them probably, you guys might overlap. I don't know. Yeah. And she produces these campaigns for Rogers. Yeah. And this thought and discussion or trend that, we're moving away from like working for these big corps or like I love Slavens, but like, not working for brokerages, that we're, becoming with all of the social and all of this kind of trends. Do we need these big companies anymore?
So I think what we're talking about here is like that freelance economy, that independence, and essentially, or gig economy, which is becoming more and more popular. And I think that, independent working, obviously technology has helped with that, because you can kind of work anywhere in the world for somebody else, and you don't necessarily take on a salaried job anymore. You kind of take it on like job per job basis. So essentially it's kind of like what I do for a living now. Right. And people in my industry, I think it's been quite normal for a long, long time. It's catching on in other areas where you get hired for a job. You get paid for said job. And then once that job is done, you're no longer on that job and you find your next job. And so kind of that's what I do for a living. Right. So I get hired for a job. I find the experts that will make this job great. And so that's where my skills get utilized. I oversee the project management of the whole job, the production of the job. And then when the job's done, I hand the client one bill, and I pay out everybody under my company name. So for the client that hires me, it's a nice, tidy, like, bow, like, here you go, here's your project, here's your one invoice. Thank you for the work kind of thing. Yeah.
So you're like me. You have like 20 to 30 bosses a year.
Yes.
Right. Exactly. Exactly.
And it's like, it's a roller coaster ride. You know what I mean? Like, I love it so much. And there's highs when you're, doing really well and things are like, are grooving. And then like when it's like quiet, you're like, is this it? Is this the end? Like, and you start like having, a moment. But as my husband has told me, he's like such a great person to kind of talk to when, there's highs and lows. It's like somewhere in the middle is the reality, right? So it's like this. It is like this. It's a very emotional roller coaster doing, what I do, and it being a freelance person, and you're while you're finishing up another job, you need to know what your next job's going to be, or do you?
So you're in sales.
Yes. Oh my God, I'm in everything, and so like you're working on one job, and then something else comes in, and do you say yes? Because are you overloading yourself? But how do you say no? Because like, what if there's nothing after that? And just kind of like that sort of thing.
I think it's a great explanation. I mean, if there's people who are thinking about, let's say, getting into, an entrepreneurial role, or starting, I can't speak entrepreneurial role, or starting a new company, or agents who are thinking about getting into the business. Like I always say, I have a son who definitely will be in sales at some point, and he had a little bit of a taste the other day, and it kind of fell apart. And my husband laughed. He's like, oh, sales 101 right there, because that's what this is all about. And I always say it's not necessarily brain surgery. You need to have a DNA. So you have that talent to be able to manage and understand what that funnel looks like. And yes, I mean, my husband's the same for sure. He says, I thrive in chaos. And if it's not chaotic, I lose my mind. I'm like, oh my God, I have an afternoon. And he's like, why are you not enjoying that? I'm like, no. Yeah. Like something's wrong. Yeah. So I think that being able to manage that is a huge part of being an entrepreneur and building that business for sure.
Connections, that's why I called the collab, because that's essentially what I do for a living. I bring together
CO-lab. Yes.
I bring together the client who's looking for a specific artist and a style and a look. And I build that team from artist, photographer that I represent to supporting creatives that come in and create that look based off of a brief that we're given. It is an incredible experience, but production is like it's high, it's intense. You know what I mean? You're dealing with lots of different people. Creative is not 1 + 1 = 2. It's very different in terms of that, and then, but again, I wouldn't change it for the world. I'm so happy doing what I'm doing. I love what I do, and again, I think the biggest part about what I do is when you just said sales, which is like same with you. You know what I mean? When it comes to real estate, it's like who your contacts are.
No, I just realized I'm a project manager.
Yes,
I just realized like when I have a listing, I'm a project manager.
Yes.
I pull in all of my resources.
Yes, it's very
so
similar.
there we go. We just realized Shannon's also in sales, and I'm also a project manager. All right. Well, I feel like that's a good place to end. We both came up with we had an aha moment. But for anybody who is interested or any of those phenomenal talents that maybe are looking to be represented, where can people find you?
So we are in the Junction, our office. Our office is in the Junction. We just opened in October of last year because we were remote. Before, remote was a thing because it was just me at the beginning. And now we are in the Junction, and we just moved in October 1st, like I just said. And we're above 3 new photo studios that were just built, which is really incredible for us and the service offerings for our clients. Yeah.
Awesome. All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for being
Thank you for having me.
Yes,
yeah.
Your first podcast.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's so exciting.
Good. I'm so glad. Thank you.